The cruelest prison isn't made of bars and stone. It's the cage of your own body when it refuses to obey, and the silence of those who once loved you when they decide you're no longer worth the burden. That's how Doris Hardy's imprisonment began. The day the debt collector comes to their modest cottage is the day she learns exactly how little she's worth to the people who raised her. Movement had been Doris's refuge since childhood. The freedom of running through fields, of dancing at pack gatherings, of shifting into her wolf form and racing beneath the moon. Growing up, she'd taken for granted that her body would always obey, that someday she'd find her mate and bear strong cubs, that her future in the pack was secure. But 5 years ago the illness struck. Fever that wouldn't break, seizures that racked her body, and then the devastating aftermath. Her legs wouldn't support her weight. Her hands trembled no matter how hard she tried to still them. Her words came out slurred, fighting past muscles that no longer obeyed. And her wolf, once as natural to her as breathing, had vanished entirely, locked away behind a door she could no longer open. Hope was a treacherous thing, as it turned out, because when it's finally crushed, you suffer not just the pain of your circumstances, but the ache of having dared to dream it all. If you're moved by Doris's story of resilience, please hit that like button. It helps share stories of hope with others who need them. The debt collector's steel-gray eyes swept across their cottage in the dim afternoon light, his massive armored frame blocking what little sunlight struggled through the doorway. Doris watched from her wheelchair in the corner as her father stood rigid before this representative of Alpha King Valerius, while her mother clutched Doris's younger sister Mara protectively to her chest, as if the warrior might demand her instead, which, given the family's circumstances, wasn't impossible. Your debts have accumulated beyond acceptable limits, the collector's voice rumbled through their small home, formal and devoid of sympathy. By order of Alpha King Valerius, payment is due in full. Today. Doris's father's hands shook as he held out a small pouch of coins. Like everyone in their village, human and shifter alike, he lived in fear of the king's justice. Stories spread throughout the territory about Valerius's fierce reputation. A warrior king who'd led countless battles, who showed no mercy to those who failed their obligations to the pack. At least able-bodied pack members had value, could work off their debts through service. But damaged goods? The disabled? They had no place in a society built on strength. And Doris, she was considered the worst kind of burden. Born to shifting parents with a strong wolf bloodline, she'd been normal, healthy, valuable. Until she wasn't. The mysterious illness 5 years ago had stolen everything. Unable to shift, unable to work, unable to even care for herself without assistance. She'd gone from a promising young woman with suitors to a burden her family could barely afford to feed. Her father had tried to hide her deterioration from the pack at first, hoping she'd recover. But months became years, and hope became resentment, and resentment became this. Him counting out coins with trembling fingers, knowing it would never be enough. "My lord," her father's voice cracked, "we've sold everything we could spare. If you could grant us more time. You know the penalty for failing to meet your obligations." The collector's eyes swept the room again, cataloging assets. They lingered on Mara, young and healthy, then moved dismissively past Doris in her chair. "The king requires payment. Gold or service. Those are your options." Doris's mother pulled Mara closer, and Doris felt something twist in her chest. She knew that protective gesture. She'd seen it more and more these past years. Her mother shielding Mara from everything, including Doris herself, as if disability were contagious. As if being broken were something that could spread. The collector's gaze finally settled back on Doris, assessing. "What's wrong with that one?" The question was asked as if Doris weren't even in the room, as if she couldn't hear, couldn't understand. As if the tremor in her hands had somehow affected her mind. "Cerebral palsy, my lord," her father answered, his voice flat. "From illness 5 years past. She can't work. Can't shift. Can barely." He stopped, seeming to remember she was listening. Or perhaps he just didn't care anymore. "She's useless then." Not a question. A statement of fact. Doris's fingers tightened on the arms of her wheelchair, the only protest her treacherous body would allow. The collector had already dismissed her, was turning back to her father. "Your debt is substantial. Without payment you forfeit your land and home. Your family will be cast out of pack territory." Her mother's sharp intake of breath. Mara's quiet whimper. Her father's face going pale as ash. "They would lose everything. The cottage, small as it was all they had. Cast out of pack territory meant becoming rogues, vulnerable to every danger that lurked beyond the pack's protection. For her parents, for Mara, it would be a death sentence. Because of her. Because feeding Doris, caring for Doris, supporting Doris had drained their resources dry. Her father's eyes slid to her then, and in that look, Doris saw 5 years of frustration, resentment, and barely suppressed disgust crystallize into something else. Something that made her blood run cold. Calculation. "My lord," her father said slowly, and Doris knew, she knew before he even spoke the words. What if we had something else to offer? Someone else? The collector's eyebrow rose. "Go on." "My daughter. Doris." Her father gestured toward her without looking at her, as if she were furniture being appraised. "She's damaged, yes, but she's still breathing. Still has her mind, such as it is. She can do light work, perhaps. Companionship. Whatever His Majesty might need." The words hit Doris like physical blows. Each one a betrayal. Damaged. Such as it is. Whatever His Majesty might need. Her mother said nothing. Didn't protest. Didn't even look at Doris. Just held Mara tighter. The collector's eyes swept over Doris again, this time with more interest. Not the interest of someone seeing a person, but of someone assessing merchandise. "A crippled girl in payment for your debts?" "She was healthy once," her father said quickly, desperately. "Good bloodline. She just needs, she can still." He trailed off, unable to even articulate what value she might have. Because there was none. They all knew it. Doris knew it. The collector studied her for a long moment. Doris sat frozen in her chair, hands trembling in her lap. Whether from her condition or from the crushing weight of this moment, she couldn't tell. This was it then. The final confirmation of what she'd suspected for years. She was worth less than the roof over their heads. Less than avoiding the shame of being cast out. Less than nothing. "Very well," the collector said finally. "I'll bring her before the king. If he finds any use for her, your debt is cleared. If not..." He shrugged. "She'll be disposed of, and you'll owe the full amount plus penalty for wasting His Majesty's time." Disposed of. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Which Doris supposed was exactly what they were. "Thank you, my lord," her father breathed, relief washing over his features. Relief at giving his daughter away. Relief at saving himself. Doris's mother finally met her eyes then and quickly looked away. Guilt maybe. Or maybe just the same relief Doris saw in her father's face. Either way, no one was going to fight for her. No one was going to say this was wrong, that she was still their daughter, that her life still had value. "Collect whatever belongings she needs," the collector ordered. "We leave within the hour." Her father nodded eagerly and disappeared into the other room. Her mother stood there, still holding Mara, still not speaking. Mara at least looked confused, frightened. "Dory," her little sister whispered, using her childhood name. "Where are you going?" "Away," Doris managed, her voice slurred but steady. She wouldn't cry. Wouldn't give them the satisfaction. "I'm going away, Mara." "But..." "Hush," their mother said sharply, pulling Mara toward the other room. "Say goodbye to your sister. Say goodbye." As if this were normal. As if they were sending Doris off to market, not to possible death at the hands of a king who had no use for broken things. The collector stood by the door, patient as stone, waiting. In the other room, Doris could hear her father gathering her few possessions. The threadbare blanket from her bed, a change of clothes, nothing of real value because she had nothing of real value. Even her belongings were worthless. Doris looked around the cottage that had been her prison for 5 years. The doorway she couldn't navigate alone. The bedroom she couldn't reach without being carried. The family who'd stopped seeing her as a person and started seeing her as a burden. And she realized something with perfect, crystalline clarity. She'd been dead to them for years already. This was just making it official. When her father returned with a small bundle tied in cloth, he still wouldn't meet her eyes. "Collector, she'll need to be. That is, she can't walk so." "I can see that," the collector said dryly. He moved forward, and for a brief, insane moment, Doris thought about protesting, about refusing, about making them drag her screaming from this place. But what would be the point? The collector lifted her from her chair with surprising gentleness. Not the rough handling she'd expected, but careful, almost respectful. His armor was cold against her skin, and she could feel the power in his arms, the easy strength of someone for whom carrying another person was nothing. He settled her into a cart waiting outside, cushioned with furs that were far finer than anything in her family's cottage. Through the open door she could see her family standing in the threshold. Her father relieved. Her mother guilty but silent. Mara crying. No one said goodbye. No one said they were sorry. No one said they loved her. Doris didn't look back as the cart began to move. There was nothing left there for her anyway. Just the ghost of who she'd been before her body betrayed her, before her family decided she was worth less than their home, before love proved to be conditional on what she could give them. The collector rode beside the cart on his massive warhorse, silent and watchful. After several minutes he spoke, his voice neutral. "You understand what's happening? I'm being given to the king," Doris said, forcing the words past her rebellious tongue. "Payment for my family's debts. If he finds me useless, I'll be killed." "Disposed of," the collector corrected as if there were a meaningful difference. "Same thing." Pause. "Then, perhaps." Doris closed her eyes against the weak afternoon sun. At least if the king killed her quickly, it would be better than the slow death of being a burden for another 40 years. At least it would be over. The cart rolled on toward Alpha King Valerius's castle, toward whatever fate awaited a broken girl in a world that had no room for weakness. And Doris, hands trembling in her lap, tried very hard not to hope that maybe, somehow, this might be anything other than the end she deserved. Because hope, as she'd learned, was the cruelest prison of all. Then Alpha King Valerius entered. The room shrank. Massive, battle-worn armor, dark fur cloak, weathered face. A warrior's face. Steel-gray eyes swept the room. When his gaze landed on Doris, she forced herself to meet it. He looked at her, then turned to Marcus. A single nod. Her father smiled with relief. The cart bounced along the road. Doris kept her eyes ahead. Nothing behind worth remembering. Valerius rode beside the cart, silent. Power radiated from him. When they reached a steep hill, he dismounted. Doris's stomach dropped. "The wheels won't make it with her weight," Marcus explained. Valerius reached in and lifted her. The gentleness shocked her. Careful hands, one arm beneath her knees, the other supporting her back. Not rough. Not disgusted. Just steady. For a brief moment their eyes met. Something in his gaze she couldn't identify. Not pity. Something else that made her breath catch. Then he turned, carrying her up the hill, and the moment passed. She told herself she'd imagined it. But his arms were warm. At the top he placed her back in the cart with the same care, adjusting the furs. Then he mounted his horse and rode ahead. Doris pressed her trembling hands together. That gentleness. It didn't make sense. Unless he was ensuring his payment arrived undamaged. Like carrying eggs to market. The thought should have brought clarity. Instead it twisted painfully in her chest. For one stupid moment she'd felt like a person again. He crushed the feeling. Hope was dangerous. The castle loomed ahead, dark towers against gray sky. She was broken. Worthless. Already dead to everyone who'd mattered. But his arms had been warm. The castle rose like a monument to power, dark stone and towering walls. Doris stared up and thought, "This is where I die." She expected dungeons. Chains. Instead, Marcus carried her through torchlit corridors, past battle tapestries, up stairs her legs would never climb. The room made her breath catch. Soft bed. Crackling fireplace. Windows overlooking the valley. More comfort than she'd seen in 5 years. Which meant it was a trap. Doris sat on the too-soft bed and waited for reality. For guards. For someone to explain what the king wanted. Instead, servants came. They helped her wash, brought soup, exchanged confused glances. One whispered, "Why would His Majesty accept a crippled girl?" Then came Miriam, elderly with sharp eyes. She examined Doris clinically, checking reflexes, tremors, speech. Not cruel, not kind. Just assessing. Cerebral palsy. From illness, not birth. Interesting. As if Doris were a puzzle, not a person. Night fell. Doris lay tense in the too-soft bed. This couldn't be real. Any moment. Voices drifted through the door. The Dowager Queen's been dying for months. His Majesty's desperate to find someone who can help her, but everyone's frightened. Do you think that's why he brought the crippled girl? Someone who understands. Understanding crashed over Doris. She wasn't here to be tortured. She was here to care for a dying woman. Another prison. Another burden. They'd trade her from one failing body to another, use her up, dispose of her. Sleep wouldn't come. Everything felt wrong. Finally, she pulled herself to the window using furniture as support. Arms trembling, but she managed. The view stole her breath. Forests stretched to the horizon. Mountains rising. Fields dotted with villages. Vast. Beautiful. Free. For the first time in 5 years, Doris could see beyond the walls that had imprisoned her. Could see possibility. What if this isn't the end? The thought whispered treacherously. What if there's something here you can't see? Oh. She crushed it immediately. Hope was the cruelest prison. Hope made you believe in impossible things. Hope set you up for the fall. But the view remained, vast and beautiful, and somewhere deep inside where she couldn't quite kill it, something small and stubborn whispered, "What if?" Marcus came for her at dawn. "His Majesty wishes to see you." Doris's stomach dropped. This was it. Whatever safety she'd felt shattered. Valerius's study was dark wood and maps. A sword against the desk. The king stood at the window, every inch the warrior. When he turned, steel-gray eyes assessed her. Doris forced herself to meet his gaze. "My mother is dying," he said without preamble. "The same illness that afflicts you struck her 3 years ago." Doris's breath caught. "She's bedridden. In pain. Isolated." His jaw tightened. "The servants fear her condition. They do their duty, but they won't see her. They see the illness. The weakness. They pity her." Understanding dawned. "I don't need someone to pity her," Valerius said, voice rough. "I need someone who knows what she's experiencing. Someone who won't lie about what this is like." He hadn't brought her here to be tortured. He'd brought her because she was broken. Because her brokenness was exactly what his mother needed. "You chose me because of my condition," she said. "Not despite it." "Yes." The word cracked something open inside her chest. For 5 years her disability had made her worthless. And this king had chosen her specifically because she understood suffering. "I'll take you to her." The Dowager Queen's chambers were dim and warm. The woman in the bed was wasted, skin pale, body trembling. But her eyes, sharp and kind, fixed on Doris with recognition. "Finally," the queen said, voice weak but clear. "Someone who won't lie to me about what this is like." Valerius moved to his mother's bedside, and the transformation stole Doris's breath. This warrior king knelt with such tenderness that she understood. He wasn't cruel. He was desperate. A son watching his mother die, powerless to stop it. "Mother, this is Doris. She's going to keep you company." The queen reached out a trembling hand. The same involuntary shake Doris knew too well, had hated for 5 years, had been ashamed of every day. Doris took it without hesitation. Both hands shook in perfect synchronization. "We match," the queen said with a weak smile. And Doris smiled back, real and true for the first time in 5 years. "Yes," she whispered. "We do." This is just the beginning of Doris's transformation. Subscribe to follow her journey from worthlessness to becoming a powerful queen. New chapters drop regularly. The days fell into rhythm. Doris read to the queen. Old stories of battles and heroes. She helped her eat when tremors made it impossible. They shared the indignities of bodies that refused to obey. "I led troops once," the queen said one afternoon. "Charged into battle. Commanded respect." Her hand shook trying to lift her cup. Then this. 3 years ago. Slowly stealing everything. Doris steadied the cup. "Everyone thinks it's a curse? Bad blood. Divine punishment." The queen's laugh was bitter. "But I know better. I've seen this in other packs, other lands. It can be treated." Her eyes fixed on Doris. "No one here knows how. But I've been researching." Hope flickered dangerously. "You're young," the queen continued. "You could get better. I'm old. This will kill me. But you—" Her hand gripped Doris's. "You could heal." The words terrified her more than any threat. Then Thorn came. Ancient, weathered eyes that had seen too much. The queen's secret consultant. He examined Doris with clinical precision. "The illness damaged your nervous system. With time, therapy, specific treatments, recovery is possible." He paused. "Not certain. But possible. Possible." The word hung like a knife. Doris wanted to reject it. Hope was dangerous. But the queen watched with such fierce belief that Doris couldn't speak. Over weeks, small changes began. The tremor in her hands lessened. Her words came clearer. Thorn's exercises were agonizing, but something was shifting. Valerius watched from doorways, silent, observing, seeing her give his mother what no one else could: comfort, understanding, truth. One evening, as Doris helped the queen settle for sleep, the older woman caught her hand. "You remind me of myself at your age," the queen said softly. "Fierce, unbowed even when your own body is the battlefield." Her grip tightened. "Promise me something. When I'm gone, you'll fight. You'll try to heal. You'll let yourself be loved." Tears burned Doris's eyes. "Your Majesty, promise me." The command was absolute. This woman who'd led armies, who'd fought her own failing body with dignity, who'd seen worth in Doris when no one else had. "I promise," Doris whispered, tears streaming. The queen smiled. "Good girl." Her eyes drifted closed. "You're going to be magnificent." And for the first time since the illness took her, Doris let herself believe it might be true. Months blurred together in pain and incremental progress. Mornings with Thorn were agony, stretching muscles that screamed protest, forcing limbs to remember forgotten movement. Afternoons with the queen were gentle, reading stories while her body slowly relearned obedience. Some days Doris could barely grip a spoon. Her legs would buckle under even a second of weight. She'd collapse and want to surrender. But then came small victories. A cup lifted without tremor. Full sentences spoken clearly. 30 seconds standing with only a cane. Each one felt like conquering a mountain. Valerius came every evening to sit with his mother. Gradually he began to talk. About losing his father in battle. Becoming king at 19, drowning in duty. About his mate dying in childbirth, taking their son with her. "I've been alone a long time," he said one night. "I forgot what it was like to..." He trailed off, but his eyes found Doris's. He felt it too. The way their hands would brush when reaching for the same book. How his gaze would linger when she helped his mother. The tenderness in his expression. But she was still here as payment for debt. Still technically his property. How could this be real? One evening, after brutal therapy left her in tears, she found him in the hallway. He didn't speak. Just sat beside her on the floor, solid and steady while she broke. Finally, quietly, "Strength isn't never falling. It's getting back up." She looked at him through blurred vision. This king who'd lost everything, who carried a kingdom's weight, who was watching his mother die. Who somehow saw Doris, broken, struggling Doris, as strong. The queen's health declined steadily. But she smiled more. Found peace Doris had never seen in someone dying. Then came the good day. Doris stood, gripped her cane and walked. 1 step. 2. 3. She looked up, triumphant, and found Valerius in the doorway. The expression on his face stopped her breath. Fierce pride. Wonder. As if she'd conquered armies instead of taking 3 trembling steps. "You're magnificent," he said, voice rough with emotion. And for the first time in 5 years, looking into his eyes, seeing herself reflected there as something other than broken, he almost believed him. The queen's breathing had grown shallow, her clarity fading. But when her eyes opened that morning, they were sharp. "My son looks at you the way his father looked at me," she said. "Like you're the sun and he's been living in darkness." Doris's hands stilled. "Your Majesty. I'm not. I can't be what a king needs. I'm still." "Still what?" The queen's hand caught hers. "Still recovering, still human, still real. Those aren't flaws, child. Those are gifts." Tears burned Doris's eyes. He deserves someone who sees him. Someone who knows what it means to fight. The queen squeezed her hand. "He deserves you. And you deserve to be loved." Permission. Blessing. From a woman who'd been more mother to her than her own. "Let yourself love him," the queen whispered. Before Doris could answer, Valerius entered. The queen's eyes gleamed. "I need to rest. Please stay. Talk." She closed her eyes, satisfied. Silence stretched. Valerius moved closer. "Doris. Your mother thinks." "She's right." His voice was rough. "She's always right." He reached for her. Doris rose to meet him, standing on her own, steadier each day. His hand cupped her face. She could feel his breath. The door burst open. A servant with medicine. They sprang apart. Later, in the garden where Doris practiced walking, Valerius found her. "You're not here because of debt," he said. "The debt was paid the moment you brought my mother peace. You stay because He stopped. "I stay because I want to," Doris said softly. "Because She couldn't finish either. But he understood. He took her trembling hand in his steady one. "You are not my property. You never were. You're here because seeing you is the only time I remember how to breathe. Because you chose to stay. And I'm asking you, begging you, to keep choosing it. Choose me. Choose us." Tears fell. For 5 years she'd been nothing. Broken. But this man, this king, saw her as whole. "Yes," she whispered. From the window above, the queen watched them embrace. She smiled, closed her eyes, and let herself rest. "You're going to do it," she told Doris that morning. "Walk again. Shift again. Be queen." Now, feeling peace settle over her, the queen knew her son had finally found his way back to light. The story is building to something amazing. If you're invested in Doris and Valerius's love story, please like and subscribe. Your support means everything and helps us bring you more heartfelt tales. The queen's final days passed in whispers and stillness. Doris never left her side, holding her hand, reading stories, simply being present as the woman who'd given her everything slowly faded. On the last morning, the queen's eyes opened one final time. Clear. Focused. "You were never broken, child," she whispered. "You were always whole. Sometimes the world just needs time to catch up to what we already are." Tears streamed down Doris's face. "Let me see my son." Valerius came, knelt beside the bed. His mother's hand found his. "Love her," she said, voice fading. "Protect her. Let her protect you. She's stronger than any warrior I've ever known. Mother, I'm proud of you. Both of you." Her final breath was gentle as a sigh. Peaceful. Ready. The kingdom mourned. Doris moved through it in grief, but beneath the pain was determination. The queen had believed in her, had seen her whole. Doris would not let that faith be in vain. 3 days after the funeral, Doris stood in the therapy room. She'd been walking with support for weeks. But today she had to do this. For the queen. For herself. She let go of the parallel bars. Her legs trembled but held. 1 step. 2. The doorway seemed impossibly far, but Valerius stood there. Their eyes met. She walked. 10 steps. 15. 20. Each one steadier. Each one proof that broken was a lie. She walked into Valerius's arms and they both broke, grief and joy tangled together, tears falling as he held her upright. "She would have been so proud," Doris whispered. She knew. His voice was rough. "She told me you would do this. She believed in you before you believed in yourself." Standing there, holding him, feeling her legs strong beneath her for the first time in 5 years, Doris understood with perfect clarity. "I can stand. I can walk." She looked up, eyes fierce. "And I'm going to shift." His breath caught. "When?" "Soon," she promised. "Very soon." Weeks passed. Doris walked with only slight difficulty now. Her hands steady. Her words clear. She'd healed in every measurable way. Except one. She hadn't shifted. 5 years since her wolf had gone silent. The final test remained. The pack whispered. Court members spoke loudly. "She's improved, yes, but queen? A woman who was crippled." Valerius's fury was cold. "She was never crippled. She was ill. And she's healed." But Doris knew the truth. She needed to prove it, not to them but to herself. Under the full moon, the pack gathered. Doris stood in the center, Valerius beside her. She could feel their doubt. She closed her eyes. Reached for the shift. Nothing. 5 years of silence had built walls too high, fear too deep. He couldn't. "You are not broken." Valerius's voice cut through her panic. "You never were. Let her out. Let your wolf free." She met his gaze. Saw absolute certainty. "You were always whole," the queen's voice whispered in memory. Doris closed her eyes again. This time she didn't reach. She simply let go. Let go of fear. Shame. The belief that she was damaged beyond repair. Her wolf was there. Had always been there. Waiting. The shift tore through her. Painful, difficult, 5 years of rust making every reformation agony. But she didn't stop. When she opened her eyes, the world was sharper. She stood on 4 legs. A golden wolf. Smaller than some but fierce. Graceful. Perfect. The pack gasped. She ran. Truly ran. Wind in her fur, earth beneath her paws, moon above. Free. Whole. Alive. When she shifted back, Valerius caught her, wrapped his cloak around her. He turned to the pack. This is Doris D. Hardy, survivor, warrior, my mate and your queen. Doris stepped forward, head high. No shame. No doubt. I am Doris D. Hardy, she said, voice steady. 5 years ago, illness tried to destroy me. My family abandoned me. Society declared me worthless. But I survived. I healed. I found my strength. And I found my mate. She looked at each of them. I am your queen, not despite what I've overcome, but because of it. I understand suffering. I understand fighting. I understand refusing to surrender. And that makes me exactly the queen you need. Silence. Then one wolf howled. Another joined. Then another. Until the whole pack sang her triumph to the moon. The mating ceremony was simple but profound. Under the same moon that had witnessed her shift, Doris and Valerius bonded before the kingdom. No longer debt payment and king. Equals. Partners. Mates. Weeks later, Miriam confirmed what Doris had suspected. Pregnant. With twins. The woman they'd said would never walk, never shift, never bear children, carrying the kingdom's heirs. Doris stood before the Dowager Queen's portrait in what was now her chambers, hand on her swelling belly. I kept my promise, she said softly. I fought. I healed. I let myself be loved. Thank you for seeing me when I couldn't see myself. She'd established the Dowager Queen's Foundation, care programs for ill and disabled pack members. No one would be abandoned for being broken again. 5 years ago, she'd sat in a wheelchair, handed over like garbage. Now she walked through her kingdom, their queen in truth and heart. Valerius entered, wrapped his arms around her, placed his hand over hers on her belly. The twins moved beneath their palms. What are you thinking? He asked. That life is strange. She leaned back against him. 5 years ago I thought I was dead. I thought broken was all I'd ever be. And now I know I was never broken. I was just becoming someone stronger than I ever imagined. She turned in his arms, placed both hands on her belly. My children will grow up knowing that strength comes in many forms. That worth isn't measured by whether your body cooperates. That being different isn't being less. Tears of joy fell. They'll grow up knowing their mother was once told she was worthless, and proved the whole world wrong. Valerius kissed her forehead. They'll grow up knowing their mother is magnificent. She smiled. I completely believe you now. They stood together at the window looking out over their kingdom. The sunset painted the sky in gold and amber, colors of hope, of new beginnings, of futures hard-won and deeply cherished. Below them the kingdom thrived, transformed by a queen who taught them that true strength wasn't measured by what broke you, but by how you rebuilt yourself. Doris placed her hand on the window, her reflection steady and sure. No tremor. No weakness. Just a woman who'd survived, healed, and become exactly who she was always meant to be. Thank you for joining Doris on this incredible journey from abandonment to triumph, from brokenness to wholeness. If her story moved you, inspired you, or gave you hope, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. We have so many more powerful stories to share. And most importantly, please share Doris's story with your loved ones. You never know who might need to hear that being broken is often just becoming something stronger. Share this with someone who needs a reminder that their worth isn't determined by their circumstances, but by the strength of their heart. Your share could change someone's life. Thank you for being part of this community, and we'll see you in the next story.